we opened for them in Dodger Stadium the night before Thanksgiving.
I just want to see the setup of the
Sure.
framing. Go ahead.
So anyway, we're in this trailer, you know, we're nervous, opening at Dodger Stadium. I mean, when we played, you know, the closest person seemed like they were a quarter of a mile away.
Okay. And feel free to, sorry, one second.
Yeah, go ahead.
Feel free to creep out.
Sure.
Okay.
Anyway, it was great because it turns out Charlie's a fan of Ricky Fataar, Arnie's drummer. So we're in the trailer yakking, I hear a knock on the door, and I open it, it's like Charlie all by himself. It's like, wow, hi, come on in, you know. Is Ricky Fataar here? Yeah, Ricky just blushed because, I mean, they had met, you know, 20 years ago, 25 years ago, but Charlie wanted to come in and hang with Ricky. It was great, and then he brought Earl Palmer in a wheelchair. It was like about a year before he died.
Okay, almost here.
Interesting cat, Charlie.
Yeah. But still, just you're taken back by the warmth.
Yeah, he seems like the genuine cat, you know. And word has it Bill Wyman's going to go out there again next year tour.
Okay, I'm rolling tape there, guys.
Okay. And that's just one quick question. I want to just see the framing just one more time. So we're... Yeah, good. And the audio level, you
All
okay,
set?
Nick?
Yep, perfect. Yeah, me too, I better.
Yeah.
I should probably just power it off, huh? That would be better. Because they put out signals. I spent most of yesterday in the T-Mobile office 2 blocks from here. Yes, okay.
I go Verizon. I've been with Verizon for years. Love it.
I've been with T-Mobile since before they were T-Mobile. Always killer. I did an operating system update and everything went to hell. Never fix anything.
Okay. Let's light this candle, right? All right, we got speed?
Yeah, trying to.
Oh, sorry, I forgot it was there. I was fixing my shirt.
Okay.
I won't do that again.
Speed.
We have speed. George Marinelli, Marinelli. George, welcome to Studio Jams.
Thanks. Thanks, Tom.
George, just give me a quick 3 or 4 sentence background of where you live and where you were born.
Born in Staten Island, New York. Lived there till I was 14. Family moved to LA because the B&O Railroad folded and everybody was out of work. Went to LA, grew up there, went to school there, started playing music there, got involved in bands and got involved in session work out there. It was a killer time to be learning an instrument and diving in the deep end of the music business. And then lived there till 21 years ago. We moved to Nashville. Our son was a year old and we moved to Nashville and been there ever since, yeah.
Can you remember back when you first got bit by the bug and wanted to make music for a living? And
yeah, I sort of can. I mean, I started late. I didn't get a guitar till I was 15, so I was a bit of a late bloomer and got in a couple of bands, you know, at the end of high school and then college. And I just soaked up everything I could. And then I'll tell you how the switch came that, okay, now I'm doing this for a living, is because I got kicked out of college for terrible grades after 1 year, East Los Angeles Junior College. And so I went to work for the phone company and was working for the phone company for a year. And they said, "You're going to pole climbing school." I said, "No, I'm not. I'm afraid of heights." And I auditioned for a band and I've been playing music ever since. That's kind of was what spurred the actual, through the switch, so to say. That's why I'm still doing this.
that was your wow moment?
No, that wasn't my wow moment. That was just my fear of heights moment. And that, yeah. But no, I mean, I guess what made me want to do it is just, you know, when I first discovered that I could, you know, make notes on an instrument and I could actually, my fingers would, and my ears connected and I could figure out how to do stuff. And then so I got the bug. And as soon as I got that guitar, I was just in my room every day playing guitar. And that's what the grades were, you know. That's all I did.
And getting started, the obstacles that young musicians always face, stage fright and playing out in public in front of people, You must have had some of those, right?
You know, not really, because when I was a kid, I was really shy. I couldn't talk to anybody, especially, you know, females. But then when I learned how to play guitar, I started learning, and people started responding, saying, hey, you can actually, that's damn good, you know, in the 60s. Then I started getting confident, and, you know, I found that stage fright goes away the more prepared you are, if, you know, and all that stuff. I've never been one to get nervous before going on stage. A couple of times doing my own thing. But if I'm going up as a sideman, I'm never, you know, because I don't do my thing that often. So sometimes I will get a little nervous before going up, but after a song it's gone. But you know, playing with Bonnie, I used to play with Bruce Hornsby in the range. I never got nervous. I still don't ever get nervous. At times I wish I did, a little more adrenaline or something, you know. But no, it's. I think the more homework you do, and the more you're ready for what you're going to do, the less nervous you're going to be.
Now, Bruce was right before Bonnie?
Yeah, pretty much.
Or
Yeah.
was there a little overlap?
No, there was no overlap. It was I played with Bruce from 82 to 91. And then I quit Bruce's band, called Hutch the next day, Bonnie's bass player, and said, hey, I want to be in Bonnie's band, but she had just hired somebody, so it took about 2 years. And then she called and said, hey, would you come out and play on an album? I said, yeah, I'd love to. And then, you know, after the first day I'm working in the studio with her, she said, would you like to join the band? Yeah, which is what, you know, so. Except for 2 years, been there since. That was 93.
What musicians, George, would you say musically really inspire you? That you're really anxious to hear what they're coming up with now. And
Now?
Yeah.
God, I love Paul Simon's new album. I really like it. I know it's not immediately new. It came out, 6 months ago, 8 months ago, but it's really good. He's a guy to me that I think he's probably 70 now or close to it. Sorry, Paul, if you're not. But he's a guy who's never been content to just keep doing what he does. He's always pushing it. You know, they just released the 25th anniversary Graceland remastered with the movie. It's killer. And I remember when that came out, I went, wow. And then turned me on to African guitar players. I'd heard a little bit before that, but that really, you know, drew me into listening to those guys play. It's the same instrument. It doesn't sound like the same instrument that, you know, a Stratocaster in their hands doesn't sound like a Stratocaster in Jimi Hendrix's hands. So it's just that it shows you what people can do, you know. So anyway, I like Paul Simon. I like him a lot. Let's see. I'm trying to think of some new music I've heard that I don't know.
Or even not necessarily new, but just who inspires you?
Oh, when I was a kid, the Beatles inspired me. You know, and with this much time passed now, you know, what is this, 50 years now since everybody's celebrating 50 years. I'm seeing a lot in the newspapers. You go back and look at what they did in 6 years, how far they progressed. It's people like that. Like I said, Paul Simon, the same thing. It's like, don't just stop as soon as you know how to play, but just keep, you know, broadening your vocabulary. I like that. Big, you know, Hendrix to me was a big influence. Stones, I like a lot of rock and roll and pop. Then also, you know, not that I can play it, but I really liked fusion music a lot when it first started, you know, back in the 70s and early 80s. Like listening, I like, you know, Chick Corea, Return of Forever and all that stuff. I really like that a lot. Sure. And I like a lot of reggae music, so I like to listen to a lot of world music. That's what really piques my interest. Listen, Brazilian music kills me. I really like that. Yeah.
George, take us into the studio, okay? Your studio experiences.
Yeah.
And, you know, first, you're doing your own stuff, okay? You bring your own stuff in the studio. How does it all come together? Do you know ahead of time all the musicians you have in mind for? Do you work it out?
When I do my own stuff, like this new album I'm going to give you, I played everything. Drums, bass, the whole thing, keyboards, did all this thing, and even did the graphics work. So most of the time I'm just doing that, because what I normally do when I'm going to make a record, I don't sit, okay, I'm going to make an album and start writing. I'm just writing all the time, and when I feel like I get 8, 10, 11 songs that would cohesively be a record, then I'll assemble that and maybe go back and remix something or add some stuff. But you know, it's not like a lot of people just say, okay, now I'm going to make a record and I'm going to start writing for that album. I kind write all the time, and some of it is for me, and some of it isn't. You know, sometimes I'm pitching songs to people that I'm not writing for myself, but if I do write for myself, that's how it goes. With Bonnie, for instance, we just made this last record. It's not even a year ago, the new record. We went on an Ocean Way. You know, we rehearsed. She had X amount of songs, and we sort of listen to them and sort of throw them around and then get in rehearsal and play them, and you know, you play, you listen, it gets changed every time you play it, and then we go into the studio, and a lot of it's pretty raw, pretty live, you know, and not too many takes, you know, pretty early takes, usually 1 or 2. And so that's how that goes. In Nashville, it's a completely different thing. In Nashville, if I get called for a session, usually I don't know who is going to, I may know who the artist is, but I don't know who's going to be on the date till I show up. And depends, if it's a record, it's one thing. If it's a demo, sometimes you're cranking out 5 songs in 3 hours, including overdubs. And they come out pretty damn good, you know, it's just everybody work fast, use your ears, and trust each other, you know.
What would you say are some of the keys to being a successful studio musician?
Well, for me, what I want to do is, because when you get called to play on a record or on a demo or whatever, most of the time it's not great. The music isn't always great. It's going to be, there's a lot of mediocre writers out there, a lot of mediocre music. So what I look at is like, oh, this is, you know, this isn't like doing my own thing. This isn't like playing on a Bonnie record or a Hornsby record or any of those people. I'm here to elevate whatever this is, to take it up, to try and add to it, to make it better. And I think all the musicians who are hired are trying to do that. So you have to realize whoever's hiring you, whether it's the producer, the artist, vocalist, whatever, you know, you got to make them happy, and you got to basically try and make them feel better about themselves and their material. And it's just, you know, use your ears, don't overplay, try and play something worth listening to, being memorable. You know, there's a lot of times I'll just, you know, I think it's really good to just pick and choose spots rather than just constantly playing top to bottom on a track. Figure out, okay, this worked here. You know, sometimes on run-throughs you play a little more than you think you should to figure out what works and what doesn't, and on the next run-through you'll weed out half of it and things like that. But I think it's, you know, good players don't overdo it. You know, they leave holes, and then that also leaves room for other sounds and overdubs. So, you know.
And diplomacy probably is pretty important, isn't it? Knowing when to say.
Kind of helps, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, because a lot of times what I find is, especially when you're working with songwriters as opposed to artists, they'll come in with some material and they hear something in their head, and sometimes you have to explain, just because you have an idea doesn't mean it's a good idea. And it's really hard to tell people that. I hear this guitar part in my head and they start singing it, and I say, well, that doesn't sound like a guitar part. That sounds like you're singing. It doesn't necessarily translate. Some people hear horn parts and it's like, well, that's not even in the range of that particular horn. Things like that. You have to sort of say, you know, I think I know what you want. Let me try something. And then, you know, usually I can come up with a better guitar part than somebody who doesn't play guitar or something. So it happens to every musician. You know, I've seen so many unbelievable bass players in Nashville, and people come out and tell them what to play, and it's just like, oh, you're kidding me. You're going to ask him to play that? But it's that kind of thing. You have to diplomatically say, okay, I think I know what you want. Let me have another stab at this, and I'll see what I can do. And then usually they're thrilled after they get away from their original thing, you know.
And from the other side of the fence, I'm sure there's many producers who will say, okay, I'm going to record a track, and geez, I know George Marinelli on guitar, and then this other drummer, and he might be a reggae drummer, and then it's knowing.
It's casting.
Yeah, right?
That, to me, that's the best producers are the guys that hire people they think are qualified to do the job, and then let them do it. You know, not that you don't say anything, but you don't immediately start saying, hey, I want you to play this, I want you to play this, I want you to play this. So why did you hire me then if you know everything? You know what? It's best to let them, and then if it's going in the wrong direction, then say, hey, let's nudge it back over there and maybe you guys tried this or tried, playing less on the verse and more on the chorus or whatever, just so things like that. That's what I liked about the first time I recorded with Bonnie. Was Don was producing, and Ed Cherney was engineering, and those guys didn't say boo unless it was going wrong. It was great. It was really fun. Yeah.
So you must know Randy Jacobs.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Not well,
Isn't
but
he?
yeah, he is. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll be
I don't
working
know.
with him next month on a change.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
That's right.
I shall. I
I
shall.
haven't seen him in years, but I've so many common friends in LA that see him all the time.
Sure. Just another question on the studio experience, George. Can you share with us a particularly memorable experience you had? Maybe it was with Bonnie, maybe it was with Bruce.
Particularly memorable studio. God, there's just so many. They all sort of run together. I don't know. No, I can't think of one thing. I really can't right now. I honestly can't. I wish I could. It's just that, playing with Bonnie, last few albums, it's been really neat that we go in, we do a lot of prep, and then we do go in, and you nail a track the first time. You may not even realize it, but you come back half an hour later and listen to 2 or 3 takes, and you realize, wow, we got it the first time, and that's a great feeling of accomplishment and satisfaction. It's like, wow, I don't suck that bad. It's pretty neat. Yeah.
How would you describe the difference between Nashville and LA, the music scene?
Oh, well, when I first moved, this is 91, we moved to Nashville. And everything in LA was changing and going to programming and machines and MIDI and blah, blah, blah. And it already had been, what am I saying? It already had been that. And I moved to Nashville, and the first session I did, I believe, was with all the killer first call guys, and everybody's playing at once. I mean, I was so refreshed. It's like, wow, actually players playing music and listening to each other, and it was great. And it's still that way. It's still pretty much that way. And I've been out of the session scene in LA now for 21 years. I mean, I go back, we recorded Bonnie's album there, but as a band, I didn't get called to do a date. It's our band. So that was a huge difference. Like, oh my God, this is great. This is just like when everybody first started playing music. It's the way it should be. You're recording a performance. It's nice.
Fast forward now to today, today's music. You're fortunate, George, in that you perform every night with a legend.
Yeah, no kidding. Believe me, I know I'm fortunate too. I don't take it for granted.
But then you finish the gig and you're out and you're driving and you turn on the radio and some of the stuff that you have to listen to, without throwing anybody under the bus in particular.
I'm not going to mention any names.
Yeah, I mean, what is your view on the current state of the music business? I mean,
I think there are great things, and I think there are awful things. And what's odd about the irony is that there's so much mediocrity out there now that Bonnie puts out a record, and this thing's doing great right out of the box, and the entire tour is sold out already. I mean, before we even played the first date, most of these gigs were sold out. So that to me is kind of, okay, maybe there are people out there who want to hear something that's real, But as far as the state of the music business right now, there are good things and bad things. And I've been saying this for now 10 or 12, 15 years, that unfortunately the technology has made it such that almost anybody who owns an instrument and some cursory recording gear could make a passable sounding recording. Not that they're coming up with anything artistic, but unfortunately the bar has been lowered over the years, and the technology, auto-tuning, Pro Tools, blah, 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 you name it, whatever you want, all these garage band things where you just cut and paste and it's all in time and perfectly in tune, people are now accustomed to hearing that. And kids are making records who don't really have much of a skill set at all. They're more entrepreneurial than when I was a kid. Maybe I'm jealous, but I don't have much business sense. But these kids are businessmen first, and then artists. And I think it's taken its toll on it, because there's just not many unique sounding bands out there. I don't think there are that many people when you hear them for you know, 30 seconds or 45 seconds, you go, oh, that's who that is. I honestly don't know who these bands are. And I don't mean to sound like my parents, but a lot of these bands sound identical to each other because they're all so limited in their musical knowledge. They learn, guitar players nowadays learn 3 or 4 chords and put a band together. They get their tattoos and their piercings, and they get their hair right. And that's what it's about. And there's so much more emphasis on that than where's your curiosity? Why did you get in music? Why aren't you still learning? Why are you still, you know, just looking at your hands to play? I mean, these guys are people with records out and they're performing live and they barely play their instruments. And that to me is the bad part of the music business, the downside of all the technology. The upside is that if you are worth a damn, it's easy to market it now. It's easier to market it now. You don't have to have a major label deal. You can go out and book gigs. You can do this, that, and it doesn't cost much to press CDs. You can get things out there. Downloads are cheap. You know, you can do all that. So I think on that side of things, it's good. You know, there's good music out there. Unfortunately, it's really hard for the cream to rise through all the, you know, through the mediocrity.
I was told a while back, something stuck with me, that they were talking about country music in general, and Bonnie's not, I wouldn't
She's
put
not
the
a
label
artist.
country at all, but
Yeah.
but nevertheless, I think she would fall into this a little, in that they said in country music, the song is the star.
Right.
Where in rock and roll, you know, anything Bon Jovi sings is going to be a hit.
Yeah.
But you could take a great country song, and it doesn't make any difference if it's Faith Hill or Shania Twain or whoever sings it.
Yeah.
It's a hit.
They revere songwriters down there. They really do. And I'm not saying all the songs are great, because I don't think they are. But ever since I've been down there, I've really noticed it. You know, the songs are chosen half the time before anything else is chosen, which is good. You know, the producers, they go through, they listen to a zillion songs. Because usually the artists down there aren't writers. That's the big difference between Nashville and pop music, is the artists are, you know, okay, you're the singer, you sing what we tell you to sing, and that's what happens. I mean, it may be changing a bit now, but when I first went down there, the songwriters were songwriters, the singers were singers, the producers were producers, musicians. It was all, you know, separate. You know, the lines may be blurring a tad now because they're going even more pop now. But yeah, I think songs are really important. I've always been a song guy.
Tell me about your projects, and you know, what are you doing lately? What can we
that-
promote for you?
I have
Can
a new
grab one and
CD.
you can
Sure.
hold on to it?
This is Moi. It's my new CD called Believe. I found out last night Justin Bieber's new album is called Believe, so I'm sure I'm going to knock
We
it
get a little
right off the
crossover,
charts. Yeah.
right?
People are going to accidentally buy mine now. It's
Yeah, when Mom
ridiculous.
goes to the store to get Johnny's new record, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, this is pretty brand new. I just finished it right before the tour started. And we're selling it on the merch table, and it's available on Amazon and iTunes and CD Baby and all that. My website, georgemarinelli.com, aptly named.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's 11 songs. Some of them co-written with a lyricist I work with a lot named Rich Wayland, who's wonderful, really good songwriter, good lyricist, good piano player. And so there's, yeah, he lives in Nashville. And it's, you know, rock and roll songs, pop songs, R&B songs, a couple of reggae songs, an Afro pop song, and a little something for everybody.
And how can people find you?
GeorgeMarinelli.com.
Can I get just a quick soundbite from you on a couple of
Sure.
different musicians? We'll
Yeah.
be doing a feature coming up on Sonny Landreth.
Yeah.
You know, your impressions of Sonny and what he brings to the table, night in and night out.
Mr. Tone. He's got the big tone, he's got the big sound, and he plays great. Good buddy of mine, Steve Kahn, was his keyboard player for years. And yeah, Sonny's great. He's terrific. I only met him once at a guitar shop at Joe Glazer's guitar shop in Nashville. So I don't really know him, but he seemed like a very nice cat. Go to Joe Glazer's and you'll meet everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's like going to Floyd's barber shop in Mayberry.
And there's another, I mean, everybody in Nashville is a singer-songwriter, it seems. I mean, you probably run into, but Tom Kimmel. There's another guy.
I know Tom very well. I've played on his albums. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. He's his neighbor. He doesn't live far from me.
Because we did a little feature on him. Love is
He's
a writer.
terrific.
He is
Great singer, great writer, and a good guy. Really good guy.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, Tom.
Yeah, tell me this. Using his name, like I don't want to put words in your mouth. That's not what I'm trying to do, George. But when I think of songwriters out of Nashville, Tom Kimmel is somebody who really blah blah blah. Just so I can insert that into the piece on Tom.
Well, Tom.
What songwriters in Nashville really impress you?
What songwriters in Nashville really impressed me? Tom, for one, just because I think he's aside from being a friend, and a really good singer, but as far as his writing, he's a real literate guy. He's not a hack. He's not trying to write down to the common denominator. He's actually saying something that he believes, and I really like writers who do that. Who instead of trying to, I'm just going to make this simplest little thing that I can get covered by so and so. I like guys who write from the heart, and he's one of them, I think. So.
And John Ims is another songwriter. Do you know John?
John who?
Ims, I-M-S.
Sorry.
No.
Cut that out.
One of a million in Nashville.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Who else? I'm trying to think. There's so many. Yeah.
Bob Halligan, perhaps.
Don't know him. You know Tony Arata?
Oh yeah.
Tony's great, soulful, good pal. Also, we've known each other for a long time. He and I have written a bunch. Bonnie cut one of them on the previous album.
I think of him. I think of The Dance, right? Wasn't that?
Yeah, he wrote a lot of songs that Garth Brooks cut.
Yeah.
But Tony's the real thing, and a really good guy, and a really good writer.
You lean. I don't want to put a label on you, George, but you're sort of country Americana, alt rock, or how would you label
Well,
yourself?
I try not to, because I don't really think there's any of that on here except maybe one song. Like that kind of, there's
But
one.
very organic when you think of the
I
years
try
with
to
the
keep
range
it
and
organic. Yeah. I try and keep it down to earth and not. I think it's really easy to get sucked up into what's current now. And unfortunately, if you use technology and rely on that for your music all the time, you're going to timestamp it. That's why when you listen to 80s music, so many great songs, but the records sound stupid now. A lot of them just sound dumb because of everybody uses absurd hand claps and gated reverbs and the same bad synth sounds that didn't hold up. But some of them, it's like, wow, cut that song again today with just people playing instruments, and it would be good, The Police stuff holds up. I think they're huge. For me, that's the last real band. I love that band. I love the way they played, and that held up because they didn't go down that road.
great. I think unless Nick or Jim, do you have any other questions you might want to ask George?
What kind of string gauge do you use?
Depends on the guitar.
Actually,
Sure.
give it to me
Okay.
for that answer to that question to me. Tell me a little bit about your guitar.
This is a guitar. I use some of these guitars. They're called Flaxwood. They're from Finland. Great company. Really about the best neck I've ever played on any guitar, including my '62 Strat, which is not here. I don't take the old guitars out anymore. But you ask about string gauges. On most of my electrics, I'm kind of going wussy and light strings. On my telly, I'm up to, I think, 12s on the top, 11s or 12s on the top. But I think I have a Dan Electro out here with baritone strings on it, even though it's not a baritone guitar. I use elixirs. I really like them. I'm not that fussy about too much. I usually have to yell at our guitar techs for changing the strings. I don't like them changed. When the new guys come on, they start changing the strings every 2 days. It's like, stop it. I don't like the brutal, don't do that.
What about your stage gear? What do you use, George, on stage?
I've been using Roland multi-effects pedals, the Boss GT series, since 1999. I really like them a lot. Not because it's endorsement or anything, because it ain't. I just really like them. They're built like tanks. The sounds are killer, and I'm lazy, so everything's in one box. And on sessions, it's easy to use because you're running one amp. I'm running stereo on stage with Bonnie now, so I'm using a couple of Ampeg GTV 15s, I think they're called. They're two 15-watt amps, and they also they did furnish me with these amps and two 12-inch extension cabinets. But it's their new line, and they're pretty cool little amps. And so far, no problems. I mean, you know, that to me is very important, that something holds up as much as sounding okay. I pretty much get a sound out of almost any amp that I could deal with it. I want something that's going to work every night. Anyway, so these are great. I'm running stereo because sometimes I get these kind of lush sounds around Bonnie's, you know, straight ahead sound. The sound guy likes that too. Sometimes I'll do ambient stuff, a lot of delays and panning and things like that on ballads. So it's like having another keyboard at times. So anyway, yeah, using those Ampegs, using some Tradition guitars. That's another company. You know, I got a Strat up there, Fender Strat, a Fender Tele, Gibson mandolin, which I've played once on this tour. I used to play it every night. But, you know, the set list gets changed with every new album. So. But yeah, my oldies stay home. The old instruments I can't bring them out anymore. So the 62 stays home. All the old amps are at home.
You can't? What do you mean?
They get lost or banged up.
Right.
And I got sick of that, so okay, fine. I'm using guitars that I love these guitars. I'm not saying, but I could replace it if it got stolen or dropped or something, you know. Whereas I'm going to try and replace my 62 Strat or my old Tele or any of that stuff, my old Gretsch.
Great. You got to run soon.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
I don't want to sound check. So
George,
that's
thank
for you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No, I'm glad that we finally hooked up.
Yeah, me too. It's been a couple of years.
I know. Well, when I first started to